thanks for coming out today. My name's Matt Broom. This is Chase LaFerny, and over there is Baxter Box. We are Carpools. Today we're going to show you how a small, scrappy startup with some innovative ideas and some great new technology is set to revolutionize the world of buying and selling cars online. Now, if you were expecting a recitation of the business plan as it was submitted, you're going to be sorely disappointed. We have a lot of really exciting things happen over the last couple weeks, and even the last 24 hours, and we're going to highlight them today. Chase is going to get us started off with a general overview of what the market looks like today.
Great. Here's a quick look at the used car market today. It's $353 billion. That's comically large. That translates for us into about 14 million cars sold annually, and actually only 51% of those cars are listed online today. Considering that this is 2011, we think that that's actually shockingly low. So we think that there's a big opportunity for growth, for listings to grow, as well as a really great chance to shape consumer behavior. Look, we don't need to tell you that there's always going to be a physical component to buying and selling a car, but we really believe that all cars are going to be listed online sooner rather than later.
So with this massive market and the variety of choices out there, there are literally hundreds of listing sites available for consumers to either list their cars on or shop. And this creates, obviously, a very big problem. The largest network out there right now is AutoTrader, and they only cover 28% of the available market. And what this means is, if you want to look for your ideal car, there's still a 72% shot by placing a listing, or rather a search on AutoTrader, that you're going to miss that vehicle. And what that means is you've got to place multiple listings or multiple sites around, multiple searches around the web at different sites. So let's talk about the listing results themselves. When you place a search, nearly every site returns a search in the same way, a one-dimensional list. And this is an example of an AutoTrader search. This is a search for a 25-mile radius around this area for a pretty niche automobile, the Porsche 911. And this actually isn't what the search results fully look like. And these are a real search pulled off of AutoTrader. This is a full search page, one page from AutoTrader, and you're listing in one dimension, a multi-dimensional search. So you have to weigh all these out in your mind as a consumer. But this is only one page for, again, a niche car. There's another page, and another page, and another page, and there's two more after this. And this is just for AutoTrader. So you can imagine what it's like when you're going to FeeHix and the other sites out there. You're having to process all this information to find out what the best deal is. And then this also extends to the selling market. So if you're listing a car online, you've got the same problem. Listing on AutoTrader costs about $40. That can range as high as $360 if you want to mortgage your house to sell your car. There are free listing sites available out there, but you get what you pay for in terms of noise and traffic and just the level of spam that there is out there. The same features here that listings are where these guys drive their revenue from is what's creating this fractured market. The reasons why they don't list each other's ads on their sites is because they don't want to give away their revenue stream, their traffic sources, to other sites. So the final problem we're going to discuss here is the pricing element of used cars. If I asked you to price this vehicle today, you'd probably go on Kelley Blue Book. Now, nobody's woke up, gone to a dealership and decided, hey, I want to pay more than Kelley Blue Book for a car. It's a high watermark, and it's an abstraction of the market. So you go down to your local car dealership, and they have it say price at $24,000. But if you haggle really well, you can get down to $22,000. And then you go to the peer-to-peer car buying market, which is the private party market, and you can see price ranges for no reason for the same vehicle, $21,000 to $18,000. Maybe somebody wants to sell it fast. Maybe somebody was attached to their car. You don't know. And then to complicate things a little more, this is a rear-wheel drive car, and it just snowed a bunch in Boulder. No one wants a rear-wheel drive car in the middle of winter in Colorado, but in Miami, that price is going to be much less elastic. So you can see that the market is not efficient, and there's a lot of emotion involved and local issues. So, Carpools has developed a tool that addresses all of these concerns through one simple web application. And the Carpools idea was born out of two realizations. One, that cars depreciate by mileage in a very predictable manner, and two, focused tools always do a better job than multi-purpose tools at a given task. That's just the reality of the situation. So we boiled the activity of buying, selling cars online down to one simple task, and that is search. Everything revolves around that. and then expanding the pool and returning more results, but not necessarily more results, but the better results, the correct results. What are you looking for? And then we focused on making sense of those results, putting them in context so people understand exactly what they're looking at, even the uninitiated, just keeping it as simple as possible. So, if you went to the website that was listed in the business plan, this is going to look a lot different. This was actually launched last week, and it's our next alpha generation of our proof of concept tool. This is our landing page. So there's no pages in between the user and their search. You land here, you can perform your search, you can find your search all exactly from the same page. There's no going back and forth. So let's look at the search results. So this is the biggest innovation with carpools. Instead of displaying a list, this is the same search on carpools that you saw on AutoTrader earlier for the Porsche 911s within 25 miles, with one big exception. This is not just one site, this is multiple sites, all boiled down and displayed as a graph. As you search through and you refine your data points, these points thin out, and you can start to see what's the best value very quickly. There's a regression analysis laid up over top of there. Basically, it's just where the best value listings are and that average price line. When you click on an individual listing, it populates this section below, and it gives you your average price under or over of how it compares to the market. And these are apples-to-apples comparisons, options and everything included. So it's the best look at the market you can possibly get. Finally, to go view the listing, we drive the traffic to the original site. So we're not competing with these sites, we're facilitating them. And that's the big difference. So we don't provide listings, we're just the facilitator. All right, we're going to have to gloss through the demo here. If you're interested in seeing it, we can pull it up in the Q&A. But we have an addition that happened in the last 24 hours that we'll get to. So again, this is how Carpools works, acts as a facilitator. If this sounds familiar, it should, because the auto industry today online strongly resembles what the online travel industry looked like in the early 2000s. There were companies like Priceline, Orbitz, Hotels.com, all selling services to consumers. And they were concerned with, obviously, their sales and competing for new packages, new traffic, and new revenue sources. Much like the way AutoTrader, VHIX, and all these guys are competing for listing spaces now. The market changed when Kayak came along. This might take a second to work. All right. Kayak.com came along, and they're doing essentially what Carpools is doing right now, focusing on one thing, search, just like their tagline says. Search one and done. By not selling, but facilitating the existing offerings out there and catering to the consumer's needs, they were able to drive a lot of traffic and become the one-stop shop for travel searching online without stepping on anybody's toes. You'll see a lot of similarities between Carpools and Kayak. That is both coincidental and not. It comes from not a styling choice where we're imitating Kayak, but just the purposefulness of the tool, where from the landing page you're getting right to those listings. And like Kayak, Carpools makes money through referrals, through click-throughs. This isn't something that needs to be implemented. It already exists in the industry as it is, and through strategically placed ads from our dealer partners. And Chase is going to take over for marketing here really quick.
Great, we're going to talk about the marketing plan for just a short while. We've sectioned it off into pre-launch and launch, post-launch. For pre-launch, what we're really focusing on and where we think our strength is with our team. We have a great team that I'm going to talk about later that are really experts at marketing. The reason they've been successful on the web is because they're marketers. They understand ideas like SEO and paid search, things like that. For launch, post-launch, we're going to have a more traditional marketing plan. Anybody that's familiar with the space is going to recognize what we're doing.
Okay, so Carpools has addressed the act of searching for and finding cars online, but there's still something, a major element that no one's been able to properly address in the entire industry, and that is, how do you verify the vehicle that you're purchasing as an average consumer? And how do you provide, I guess, that level of comfort with the sale that you would get from a higher-end dealership experience? And the answer to that is Carpool certification, or CP Cert for short. Now, what this is a universal certified pre-owned program designed specifically for the peer-to-peer car buying market, and it's designed to bolster buyer confidence. In short, the quickest way to sum this up is we want to do for the peer-to-peer car buying experience what CarMax did for the dealership buying experience in the early 1990s. And if this sounds like Carfax, it's not. CarMax has access to Carfax too, and there's a reason that they inspect their vehicles with real people. Because Carfax is a title search. It searches DMV records, and it misses conservatively 95% of the problems with vehicles out there. and it's probably more like 99% minor accidents can only be detected by a physical on-the-spot person. So how does CP Cert work? CP Cert starts when a buyer lists their car, before, during, or after they list their car on a third-party website. They go to CP Cert, they sign their car up, take their car to a authorized dealer. So if it's a Honda, they go to one of our partner dealers who also sells Hondas, and they once the listing is actually verified, it gets uploaded onto the web, and this all actually works completely independently of the third parties. It doesn't need to be facilitated by AutoTrader. These images are branded, and then at the bottom here, there's a trackback link that allows the buyers to verify it. We can give more details on this a little bit later. We're going to run out of time here. So why would your average consumer be interested in selling their car with the CP Cert logo? One, or the primary and probably the only reason is it's worth more. You can see that budget cars on a CPO program are worth $386 on average more, all the way up to $3,300 for a luxury vehicle. So we're going to take a page from Craigslist and Facebook on the rollout, and that's localized saturation. Because used car buying happens on average like 90% of the time within 25 miles of each other, we can saturate a local area and use that to leverage into an extended national network using dealership partners. And Chase is going to touch on the team.
Great, I'm going to talk about our team real quick. We think that this is our biggest strength. We really have an all-star lineup here. Matt Vroom, he's the CEO. He's been a part of several web startups, including HingeDocs, which is his most recent claim to fame. HingeDocs has overtaken the market leader in his segment. Within 8 months, he just hit the $1 million revenue mark. He did this by clever social media, viral marketing. He really understands how to do that. Dave Chin, he's our CTO. He is a really talented developer. He's worked on several different projects, just got recruited by Twitter, which is great for him, great for us. I'm Chase, I'm the COO. I've worked in the car business for about as long as I've owned a car. I've worked in dealerships as well as service, and also in the online space. I've got some financial experience at Merrill Lynch, and this summer I was at JP Morgan. Baxter, he's our chairman. He owns the web incubator Nasty Goat. He started a couple websites himself that were really successful. And this summer he was in Silicon Valley at a social media company. And Brian Neisler, we just added him. We're really excited to add this guy. He's our lead developer. He's a really talented individual. He worked on things like Sprout, Advine, and ABI.
The guy is a coding ninja.
So here's our financials. Quick look, sources and uses of cash. We need $1.9 million in the first year, $900,000 in the first month to get things started, and then $1 million in month 9 to really ramp up those marketing expenses, which we think is really important. Annual financials. Annual financial summary. We hit approximately $27 million worth of revenue in year 3. We go cash flow positive in year 2, month 17 to be exact. And something to note that's really important is that our revenue model only accounts for click-through revenues. We haven't factored in strategic ads or the CP Cert program, which I think is going to be a big money maker, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute.
All right, before we hit the Q&A session here, well, after we go through exits.
Yeah, exits. Kelly Blue Book just got acquired by AutoTrader, $600 million. ITA, which is behind Kayak, just had a big offer given to them by Google for $700 million, so that gives you an idea of what's going on in that space.
So Chase and I were fighting over who got to present this point, and that was just my attempt to rob it from him. So Chase, go for it.
Okay, so we are really excited. We've been in contact with several dealerships, and something just came to fruition on yesterday, actually. I talked to Jim Flint, who's the head of online marketing for the John Eagle Dealership Network. We talked about carpools for a little while, and we talked about CP Cert more specifically because obviously they're directly involved with the CP Cert process. We gave him our value proposition. We were a little skeptical as to whether he was going to agree with us. And not only did he agree with us, but he thought it was more valuable for a number of reasons. And actually, unsolicited, we thought this was just an information session. He offered the opportunity to possibly pilot our CP Cert program at the Eagle dealerships here in DFW.
So with that, we go to Q&A.
I was going to ask you, How do you scrape your data from the internet?
Well, scraping is a final solution, and Baxter, if you want to come up here too, he can help answer some questions too, but I can field that one. Right now, we're actually using a Google API and through Google Base and pushing the data to the web tool right now. Ultimately, we will have to resort to some level of scraping, as you mentioned, which is basically pulling unpublished data from the site, sort of in a, is there a better way of putting that?
No, it's it's a rough way of developers coding and pulling from accessing the publisher, the listings from other sites, like you said, unsolicited.
And so how do you get paid if you're scraping?
So with that particular model, for example, AutoTrader doesn't do pay-per-click advertising right now, but the other sites do. And the model that we have right now, the financials, are based on the idea that we're only getting paid from that. AutoTrader is the big boy in the room, so the other guys are trying to get up to the level and the recognition of their listings to improve, the value to their customers. So the short answer there is that initially AutoTrader doesn't pay us for those listings, but the idea is to grow the traffic organically and large enough to become a force that if people are going to it. Kayak faced the same problems when they started too. Southwest Airlines still doesn't list on them. But once you start attracting the majority of the traffic, and not even majority of traffic, a large chunk of the traffic on the web, you become sort of that, I don't want to say a force to be reckoned with, but that's essentially what
But
happens.
is that sort of my question, sort of the chicken and the egg, which is what's the sort of the way you're going to attract that many eyeballs to what is, at least it would appear to me, that one of the big differences between a travel site or an airline site or like Kayak is a reasonably infrequent transaction of buying or selling a used car. I know there's millions it's happening, but in terms of sort of getting it to where you sort of rise above all the noise.
Well, that's what's nice about this is the noise is actually the reason for this to exist in the first place. And the infrequency of the transactions, initially, when we were looking at the tool, we had that same thought. And then as we started talking to people in the space who shop for vehicles, is that the infrequency of the transaction is actually an asset for Carbles, because the infrequency of use of those tools online makes people unfamiliar with the space. So if you have a tool that they're familiar with, that's not trying to sell them things, it's the simplicity and the user-centricness of the tool that really gives it the value to the consumer. So the end result is basically the reason why people will come to the site is because it serves them better than anything else. So it's sort of the idea, if you're not trying to sell somebody something, they're going to listen to you a lot longer than somebody who's trying to sell you something. And AutoTrader and all these other sites are working toward a different goal than we are. We're there for the consumer. If we do our job better, we make more money. And that is serving them with search.
And I'd like to add that I think the main reason users are going to come to the site is that we're aggregating all of these disparate sites, listing sites, and we're able to actually accurately provide them valuation analysis. And so I think that's really our value proposition is our valuation analysis tools.
And these kind of marketing efforts they're more of an art than a science. And the guys on our team, you saw Twitter, Tipio, HingeDocs. We have not, my company HingeDocs has not spent $1 on direct advertising yet. And we became the market leader, all of that. And it's through a nuanced, it's fanning that flame, not dumping gasoline on the fire.
But yet in your plan, you have a pretty significant SEM marketing spend, it looks like to me, at least through months 1 through 12, and it drops very significantly
Right.
to 13.
Well, and the reason for that is sort of that life imitating art thing. If you present to a group of VCs a $0 marketing budget, people look at you like with raised eyebrows. So this is, it doesn't work every time. And like I said, it's an art, not a science. So we're giving the worst case scenario in there that we have to do a traditional marketing. But the real success of this thing is going to be falling back on the experience of our team in those social media fields.
And you referenced Kayak, but Kayak was backed by some really large firms. And I guess the other question would be, in your current scheme there with HingeDocs, you're really after an enthusiastic market. I mean, people that have that problem, that want to get that laptop snapped in there. And I'm not sure if that really translates well into broad markets, like any kind of airplane ticket I want to buy that gets me from A to B, or any kind of car that's this kind of car in my marketplace. Is there anything you can say to that? There must be a different approach.
Absolutely.
So,
The answer to that is we're not targeting the enthusiast market with hinge docks. We're targeting everybody in the same way that all of these mass medias are working on. It's just the enthusiast market picked it up. The cool thing is that in the automotive blogosphere and like Jalopnik and Auto Trader, there are people like us that window shop cars on a regular basis that just want to know what the pricing model is. And that's your enthusiast market for automotive shopping. The guys that go on Auto Trader just to see, has a Cadillac CTS-V. I think John Mueller's been drooling over one of those. Has it depreciated to the point where I can afford it yet? I don't know. But those people exist in this market too, and that's how the word gets out, and that's how these things get started. And it sounds, why would somebody do that? But there's for every, there's a squirrel.
So I think this is a really big idea. I think it's a pretty cool idea. I struggle with kind of initial unit economics to the point of kayak had to raise a lot of money to get to where they got to. You guys are kind of, I like the capital efficiency you're looking at early, but longer term, how do you think kayak's feeling right now that Google's buying ITA? I think kayak's probably pretty worried about that. How do you think all the comparison shopping engines are feeling right now that Google's kind of putting it into their search
Kayak
engines?
is ITA.
No.
No?
It's not.
No, it's powered by ITA.
Okay, I got it.
Most of those sites are powered by ITA.
But with Google owning it and trying to capture more of the revenue up front and trying to get rid of all the arbitrageurs that pay a lot of money on SEM, like Kayak, and saying, we don't want to have any arbitrageurs take that share of the money, how do you guys think that plays out long term, and what is probably one of, if I was to sit in Google, one of the top 5 markets I'd want to go after?
To address that problem, I think I see that as a likely problem, maybe year 2 into our business. Really, to address that, we have to go directly to Auto Trader into these, all these listing sites and make agreements with them and deal directly with them. Like Matt said, we're going to be initially going to be using Google's APIs. It's been a long day. APIs, and but we at the same time will also be talking with Auto Trader and those that are not provided on Google's API. But that is a concern of ours. But we believe that if we can bring that momentum in terms of traffic to these sites, that we can garner those relationships.
And again, that's if we're scaling that fast, and the budgets involved there. I mean, I don't want to compare us to Facebook at all, but there's a certain, once you start to scale, the rules change, and it takes a lot of money to maintain that momentum. Look at what PayPal had to do when they first launched. They were giving away their service, and they were burning, what, $250 million a year in exchange for market share, and that's what kept them on eBay. And I would anticipate that there would be, if we were growing big enough and fast enough, there would be a similar response to Auto Trader, especially in terms of CP cert, where they'd be like, we're going to knock this thing off and try to go our own route with it. But the idea is to do that old bill point versus PayPal model, where eBay couldn't get rid of them, even though they owned the space. And it's all about staying focused. Auto Trader can't have that focus unless they created a separate business unit, and they haven't changed their site since I was in high school. I mean, it's essentially the same deal. I mean, they're making some updates, and there are probably some people in the room here that work for them, so I'll probably get yelled at after this. But it's just amazing that you can be this just incumbent and not stay ahead of the curve. So.